Flexshaft. So the model we have is the K9-204. So this is a really good tool for descaling small lines. We can use it for knocking grease out of lines, even gel blockages, things like that. This thing's pretty good at getting those out of there. So this machine can only be used on 2 to 4 inch pipes. So it's anything smaller than that, we'd have to use the small placote. But yeah, so this thing's just for 2 to 4 inch pipe. There's several different heads that we can use for it for different applications. But basically, if you ever need a job where you need to either descale a pipe from 2 to 4 inches or remove grease, try and get a gel blockage unblocked, you're going to take this. Usually this is in the shop. Usually it's in Curtis's camera room. Might be in the back room as well, somewhere around those areas. If you are going to take it, you also have to make sure you bring this Ridgid bag. This bag is going to be what contains all the heads. It's going to have Allen keys, things like that in here. So yeah, make sure you don't forget this, otherwise you'll be coming back. How this thing works, basically, there is a rubber sheath on the actual cable. So this part doesn't move. It's only the actual cable that spins, which means, unlike the cable machine, we can actually run our camera in tandem with this, as long as it's beside the red sheath here, as long as you're not actually going up to the head. So right now you can see there's actually no head on it. So we'll kind of go over how to choose what head you're going to use, and as well how to install it, and then how to use the actual machine. So if you want to come over here, David. So we'll just show the different heads that we have here. So each has a different use. You can see there's some that are longer and some that are shorter. The longer ones are for wider diameter pipes. So if we're doing a 3 or 4 inch pipe, we're going to choose this longer one here. If we're doing a 2 inch pipe, we're going to use the shorter one. So as well, you can see the difference. So I'll use both these 2 inch ones. This one has teeth on it. You can see just a little bit of sharp teeth on it. This one is just a chain. So this one is what we'd be using if it's a ABS pipe or transit asbestos, anything like that. If it's cast iron that we're going into descale, we're going to use this one with teeth. If you're just trying to knock grease or remove a gel blockage, you're going to go on with this one because you don't want to cause any damage to the pipe. This one is only to be used if you're actually going in to descale. So yeah, if you are picking a longer one, again, it's because the pipe diameter is going to be larger. So if we're going in on a 3 or 4 inch pipe, we're going to choose this bigger one. When we go to actually install the chains on the cable itself, the size of pipe that we're going into is going to dictate on how we install these. So, for example, here I have a 2 inch pipe, so we'll pretend that this is full of grease, and we're going to go through and knock all the grease off. So we're going to pick this guy. This is the head for grease. It's a 2 inch pipe. We're going to pick that shorter one. We also have these cut little sections of tubing. It's basically just to act as kind of a sheath to protect the cable as it's in there spinning. We want to protect as much of it as we can. The other thing it helps do is space this out. Because we're going into a 2 inch pipe, we want there to be enough slack to go wall to wall in the pipe. We don't want too much. So for example, if we were going in this 2 inch pipe and we went on with this big one, had them really close together, there's a lot of slack. As that spins around, it's going to tangle on itself and make a huge knot and possibly get stuck, which obviously we don't want. So when we install these onto the actual cable, you slide one end on. You can grab a sheath. There's shorter ones, there's longer ones for the longer cable. We're going to put it on, put both ends on. You can go ahead and tighten the top end. So you're going to need an Allen key. There are Allen keys in there. You might want to use your own because the one that was in there looked pretty stripped. We might have to look at ordering a new one. Each of these heads has 2 Allen bolts, one on each side. It's just as simple as tightening it up. So I always tighten the first one, do it just about flush with the end here, so we don't have too much cable exposed at the end. That's going to rub against the pipe and wear that down. You want to just snug up each side. So here I'm missing one of the bolts. We need to definitely make sure we have two. Sometimes there's some just floating around in this bag. Want to make sure it's not stripped. Okay. So now that we got that other bolt, we're going to snug them both up. Just like a tire, you don't want to go too crazy on one. Do a little bit on one, a little bit on the other. But you're definitely going to want to make sure it's tight. Otherwise, this might get lost in the drain. So now that we have the top one installed, what we're going to have to do is, before we tighten down this other one, we are going to measure to make sure we have proper width on here, so it is going to get wall to wall. So because we're going into a 2-inch pipe, we want to make sure we have about 2 inches of diameter. So with this sheath in here right now, that's pretty much right on. So if we pull it out just with our fingers, you can see we're at pretty much exactly 2 inches. So we'll tighten up that other side. Once we've ensured they're all tight, double check your first ones just to make sure. So it's tight, we can double check our measurement. So we're pretty much right on 2, which is perfect. So now we're good here to go in the drain. We just have to install our drill. So with the Flexshaft, it doesn't have power or anything that goes to it. The only thing that runs it is a cordless drill. So you're going to want to use a drill that has a clutch in it, just because we don't want to over torque this cable. That's how the cable can get damaged. You want to make sure you're on, if your drill has a screw mode, that's the mode you want to be on. So mine only has a drill mode. So I'm going to just put it down so it's using the clutch. I believe the manufacturer says don't go more than 75% of the clutch. So we'll start there. If I'm using it and it's constantly clutching out the drill, then I can put that a little bit higher. But again, we want to make sure the clutch is being used just so we don't over torque. You also want to make sure your drill is in the highest speed setting. So we want to go to 2 or 3 if you have it, just because the more speed this thing gets, the better. Here we have the shaft that the drill will go onto. You just lock your clutch or onto there, and basically as your drill spins, it's going to spin this, which spins the entire cable inside of this sheath. So you're just going to tighten it down onto that. Once it's tightened on there, you also want to make sure you don't put too much pressure on your drill. So you don't want to be pushing down over here. You want to just basically hold the trigger and keep this thing level. We don't want to put too much stress on the connections in there. But you'll see here, once we have this on, I'll show you how it works before we put it in. You're always, as well, it says right here, only on forwards you want to go. Make sure your drill's in forwards, don't put it in reverse. And there we go. When you put this into the line, you want to run it on full speed. You'll see if I just, it spins very slow. It needs a lot of speed to consistently spin. So when you are ready, you got everything set up, everything's tight, everything's measured, and you're ready to go into the line. You also do have to be aware of that. Just as the cable turns, it does put a little bit of tension on this drill, and when you let go, it does want to spin around, just to release the tension that's built up in there. So just careful of that. Sometimes it'll give you a good whack. So normally we'd be going in through a clean out, but in this case we just have a pipe here. So essentially you just go in, and like I said, you can follow it with the camera. as long as you're keeping the camera back away from that head. But you are able to watch to see what is going on. Essentially, we just put it in this line. You would then want to run as much water as possible behind it. So if depending what fixture is upstream, run water from there. If you're descaling of the whole home, you know, run water from several taps. Just get as much water moving through there to carry out any debris that we loosen up. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Especially if you're using the carbide teeth to remove scaling. You don't want to leave it in one spot for too long. You just want to do quick passes back and forth, check with the camera, see if you're making progress. Yeah, you just don't want to overdo it. And again, these teeth should not be used on plastic or anything like that. Just basically cast iron is the only thing these things are used for. They can also have been able to remove roots and stuff with it before. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So one other thing to mention, if any parts or anything are missing from out of here, just let Curtis know and he'll be the one to get new stuff ordered.